So the other day, we got a submission for one of our build battle videos. As you know, build battles is where someone submits a build and another person submits a build for a given activity and they go head to head, which is what we were doing the other day. But Simple Tony submitted this build right here. And guys, this build is so good, we literally had to stop and do an individual review on this build. Now, the name that he gave it is Moth Thread Swiss Knife. Now, regardless of how you may feel about the name, let me just say this thing is potent on a multitude of levels that I did not expect, utilizing exotics that I have not used in a very long time. Now, one of those exotics is Diris, which just got an increase in impact damage versus PvE enemies by 50%. Bungie also increased its maximum rate of fire by 16%. These are substantial buffs, guys. Now, if you don't remember what this exotic does, no worry. We'll be going over it in just a moment. The other exotic is the obvious pairing, and that's Mothkeeper's Wraps. You see, Mothkeeper's Wraps comes with the exotic perk Winged Eclipse, where your grenade becomes a cage of loyal moths that release on impact and fly toward the nearest targets or ally. If they reach a target, they detonate in a blinding explosion, which, by the way, stuns unstoppable champions. And if they reach an ally, the moths grant your ally a void overshield. You can also grant yourself a void overshield. Now, a couple benefits about Mothkeeper's Wraps. Number one, it replaces your grenade ability completely. It's now these loyal moths. It also grants you an extra grenade ability charge. On top of that, it overrides base grenade ability cooldowns to 73 seconds. I feel like when these exotics came out, most people just overlooked them. But on Strand here, it's phenomenal because if you're utilizing Widow Silk, you gain an additional grenade charge. And for Mothkeepers, that nets you 3 sets of moths. That's why you're seeing me throw these moths constantly. I'm literally chucking them every chance I get. Now for our recap for Diris. Let me just say, this exotic by no means is pumping out a crazy ton of damage. It is better, but it comes with the perk Corrupted Nucleosynthesis, where the weapon enrages when dealing or taking sustained damage, gaining increased rate of fire while in rage. Its trait is Loyal Moths, where final blows of this weapon create a loyal moth, and the moth will seek out nearby targets and detonate, damaging and blinding them. Guys, this literally synergizes with Mothkeepers. Then its exotic catalyst is Berserk Rush, where the weapon enrages faster while amplified, and final blows with this weapon make you amplified. Now, I think originally I was trying to synergize this more with Arc 3.0, and yes, that is good synergy there, especially considering you can easily become amplified on Arc. However, when we cross over the lines here between subclasses and start utilizing this with Strand, I found this to be a very, very potent combination, albeit a very unlikely combination. You see, we're taking advantage of not only Widow Silk, which gives us that extra grenade charge, therefore an extra moth, but we're also taking advantage of Rolling Maelstrom, where destroying a tangle will weave a violent, writhing mass of strand fibers. Essentially, a Rasen Shuriken. Some people call it a Beyblade. Essentially, though, it turns your tangle into these little cyclones that go around wrecking everything. Arguably one of my favorite abilities in the game. And as a hunter with this aspect, you can either shoot that strand tangle or you can throw that strand tangle, and it will erupt into that cyclone, killing targets, and on top of that, emitting unraveling rounds when defeating enemies. Now, the fragments that we're using include Thread of Warding, we're picking up an Orb of Power, grants us Woven Mail, Thread of Transmutation, where while we have Woven Mail, weapon final blows create a tangle, Thread of Generation, where dealing damage generates grenade energy, and Thread of Evolution, where threadlings travel further and deal additional damage. And the other weapons of choice that we have here include a number of strand weapons, but let me just say, guys, really any strand weapon works here as long as it has hatchling. But I will say, what you choose, especially in that heavy slot, is going to be more important in the onslaught horde mode. Ammo economy is going to be really important. Not killing yourself is going to be very important. Even though I'm loving using rockets this season, keep in mind, enemies spawn up all around you in onslaught, at least from what we've seen in Bungie's reveal stream. And having a rocket launcher with you may be kind of a liability here because you can easily kill yourself. The weapons, though, that I think do really, really good is Michael's Reverence, which you can get hatchling on, and it's craftable, and Carax's Distress, which you can also get hatchling on. Now, before I get into the gameplay loop, the artifact mods are extremely important here, as well as the mods we have on our armor. But these artifact mods greatly enhance our strand weapons. We've got Unraveling Orbs. We're picking up an Orb of Power, grants strand weapons unraveling rounds. Horde Shuttle. We're damaging unraveled targets with the weapon, occasionally spawn a Threadling. This is perfect for Rolling Maelstrom, as it's essentially emitting unraveling projectiles when it's defeating targets. Then in our armor mods, I'm rocking Harmonic Siphon so that my strand weapons create orbs on kills. We also have Ashes to Assets, as we're throwing out moths constantly. Grenade Kickstart, where when your grenade energy is fully expended, your armor charge is consumed, and you gain grenade energy for each armor charge used. We have Firepower, where your grenade final blows create orbs of power. Yes, this works for your moths. We have Reaper, where after we use our class ability, your next weapon final blows blows will spawn an orb. And then powerful attraction, so that when we do use our class ability, we collect orbs very easily. Now, the reason why we always have a high uptime of charges is because we're rocking stacks on stacks, and we're also rocking charged up. So not only are we getting more charges with every orb that we pick up, we're also giving us an extra stack on top of our cap. Now, the other mods in our artifact that I was also still utilizing includes things like blast radius, where rapid final blows with rocket launchers and grenade launchers will grant you an armor charge. This is something really easy to do with Diris and Caraxes. Again, you don't have to rock Caraxes. You can rock things like Cataphracts, but there are a lot of options you can use in that heavy column. And there's also a lot of other options you can use in that top column. For instance, Rufus is fantastic here with Hatchling, and it'll pair very nicely with this build. Now onto the gameplay loop. Essentially, guys, every engagement goes pretty much the same. You throw your knife, which rips through targets and applies sever, that being your debuff, and then you just throw all of your grenades. You're blinding enemies, you're getting amplified, and then you just start ripping with Diris. Now listen, I know Diris is not the best when it comes to landing shots. I mean, literally, it's the boomer weapon. For some reason, we're not nearly as accurate with it as our boomer knights. But as you're doing this, pick up an overpower by either using your class ability with powerful attraction, and while you have woven mail, again, any weapon kills will create a tangle. And then you just want to pop those tangles, guys. Let it do its work. In the moment you pick up an orb, because of our artifact mods, your strand weapons now have unraveling rounds, which is when you really want to pick things up. And in the process, hatchling should be proccing, amongst other methods of proccing threadlings. Everything about this build is to create threadlings, throw moss, apply your melee debuff to everything, and just let all of these things work for you. It was a build that I was not expecting to be this good. I haven't used these exotics, either one of them, Mothkeepers or Diris, in a very long time. What I will say though about this build more than anything is the blinding capabilities from our moths are fantastic. This is the kind of thing that's going to keep you alive in the onslaught game mode, whether it's blinding unstoppable champions to get the stun or just blinding enemies in general. And not only that, considering that final blows with Diris also creates a loyal moth, those moths blind enemies as well. I'm gonna let a lot of this gameplay just kind of speak for itself, but as much as I love my Titan build from the other day, dude, I fell in love with this build right here. It has hooked me. Now, not enough to become a hunter main, but I'll definitely be utilizing this build once April 9th comes with the Into the Light update. What I will say though is be flexible with your weapons with this build. If you don't feel like using Diris, feel free to trade it out for something else. But I do highly recommend dipping into strand weapons. And some of the weapons that we tried yesterday that did good included things like Dragon Colt Sickle, Rufus. I even used an Immortal with Hatchling, which did really good. I do believe what makes this build really special though is the combination of Diris and Mothkeepers, but I was still able to utilize other things outside of Diris, and I had plenty of moss to take advantage of. The other weapon though that I really want to try with this is actually Indebted Kindness. And I know that doesn't make sense. Indebted Kindness is an arc weapon, but guys, Indebted Kindness rolls with permability. Considering we're using our class ability here, our marksman dodge so much, permability on Indebted Kindness will change our weapon's elemental type to our subclass. And in this case, strand. And you know how good Indebted Kindness is. The god roll that I'm going to be chasing for the next few days will be Indebted Kindness with permability and lead from gold. That is the last piece that I really want to try for this. It does a hefty amount of damage. The ammo economy is fantastic. Indebted Kindness, by the way, is one of the best weapons you can get this season. So if you're a returning player and you want to try out Warlord's Ruin, please do. There's a lot of great weapons there, but Indebted Kindness is hands down one of the best weapons you can get right now. Now, if I don't end up getting Indebted Kindness, next week, I'm going to be going for the God Row Tusk of the Boar. This is a wave frame grenade launcher. It is a strand weapon, and man, it has got a lot of juicy stuff. It's got Hatchling, it's got Slice, it's got Envious Assassin. Field Tested is also present on this weapon, and if I just want to go the route of just doing a hefty amount of damage, we've got Bait and Switch, we've got Chain Reaction. There's a number of options. The main takeaway from this build, guys, is that the synergy between Mothkeepers and Strand was really good, and there are a ton of strand weapons that will synergize well here. Again, the rest of this gameplay is from this week's Grandmaster Nightfall with a ton of various moments that really showcase how strong this build is. Big shout out to Simple Tony. This one was just too juicy to not make a video on.
Battle song emboldens the soldiers. End it.
We're dead, dude. Love how there's no limit on this. Just unload, dude. Oh shit. Oh shit. Yeah, we gotta kill that last guy. There we go. Go.
Guardian down.
Perfect. There we go. Get all these off. Dude, this is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun.
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.